Okay. Hi, everyone. So the title of my presentation is Urgent Call for International Standards in Animal Welfare, the link between pandemic prevention, animal protection, and environmental health. An alternative and slightly shorter title could be Why do we urgently need a new treaty to protect animals and prevent the next pandemic? So here's how I plan to structure my presentation. First, I want to just set out the problem as we see it. Then I'll try to explain why we need a new international treaty to address this problem. And lastly, I'll try to elaborate more on the contents of this new treaty. So the problem. The problem has been before us for at least the last 3 years with COVID-19, but even before this last pandemic, it was well known for a while. And the problem in simple terms is this: the failure of society to address animal welfare has severe consequences, not just for animals, but for humans too. And this is because there is a strong interconnection between animals and humans, between animal health and human health. COVID-19 is just the last one of a long list of zoonotic diseases, a list that includes Ebola, SARS, HIV, Nipah virus, etc. And zoonotic diseases account for at least 70% of new viral diseases. It's estimated that they cause each year approximately 3 million of deaths. And as the name suggests, they all originate from animals, and their origins all point out to a mistreatment by humans of animals. So they're all evidence of this interconnection and of the consequences that a failure to address animal welfare can cause. The mechanism is known: spillover. New pathogens spill over from animals to humans, either directly or through intermediate animal like livestock. And once the spillover occurred, human-to-human transmission is way easier than animal to human transmission. And sorry, I forgot to get the time. So once the transmission the transmission human to human is way easier than one animal to humans, and humans have little, if any, immune response because it's a new pathogen. So here you have then the risk of a new outbreak in a pandemic. As I said, COVID-19 is just the last one of a long list. There's also Ebola, SARS, HIV. I will take Nipah virus as an example because I think it's interesting for this mechanism. So the first known outbreak of Nipah virus was in 1998 in Malaysia, Singapore, and it was caused by transmission from bats to pigs and then to humans. And the first spillover is believed that occurred after pigs got infected from ingesting urine and feces of fruit bats. Fruit bats that were living near a pig farm that was created after the deforestation of that habitat, of their habitat. So here you have deforestation that caused a new proximity, that caused a loss of food resources, that creates this new condition of proximity that didn't exist before, and that creates the perfect storm. The outbreak of 1998 had a mortality rate of 40%, had severe economic consequences because around 1 million pigs had to be killed to contain the outbreak. And And still today, we have in Southeast Asia outbreaks of Ebola virus every year. We still don't have a vaccine or a cure for that. Now, fortunately, the risk of epidemic zoonotic diseases can be materially reduced by addressing at the international level these underlying causes. And as ECAP, the International Coalition for Animal Protection, which is a non-profit created by several law professors that are known to this conference, and I believe many here, David Faber, Raj Reddy, Diana Bray, and Garcia here too, and lawyers like myself and Nigel Blackaby. For the last 2 years, we've been drafting and advocating for the adoption of a new treaty, here it is, that seeks to address these problems by introducing a minimum set of standards, a set of minimum standards of treatment for all animals. And this is Convention on Animal Protection for Public Health, Animal Wellbeing and the Environment, or CAP. Again, the reason, as I said, is because sick and mistreated animals are more likely to cause to transmit diseases than healthy and well cared for animals, but also because animals deserve protection for their own sake. So CAP also recognized the intrinsic value of animals, so recognize that as humans we need to interact with them in a way that acknowledges their intrinsic value as sentient beings. Now, why do we need a new treaty? Why do we need an international instrument? Well, the first point is, I think, pretty obvious. Global problems, global solutions. Pandemics are, by definition, global phenomenon. There is little point for a state to have strong national policy if then the neighboring states do nothing and let a new virus spread and turn into the new pandemic. A similar point can be made for animal protection per se. Animals move from one jurisdiction to the other, from one set of law to the other, and because of migration, because of trade across borders. And if you believe animals have intrinsic value and deserve protection, there is no justification for the discrepancies that different laws may have. The same animal can move from a strong protection to a weak protection. Again, this discrepancy shows the fragility of animal protection law. To remove that discrepancies, you need an international instrument providing for a global standard of treatment. The second reason is that we feel there is a gap in the law at the international level. CAP would be the first treaty of this kind to provide for a set of global minimum standard of treatment for all animals. And this is currently missing. It has been referred now. So the Universal Declaration on Animal Welfare is certainly relevant, but the standards are not binding. Similarly, the standards promulgated by the World Organization for Animal Health are also standards that are not binding, whereas treaty would have binding value. And other conventions, there are of course other conventions, other international treaties that address animals, but the primary focus of these conventions is not on the well-being of animals per se, it's on the preservation of species or the management of commercially valuable animals so that they don't become endangered species. So CITES is an example of that, the Convention on International Trade in Endangered Species. The protection is limited to certain triggers, it's not extended to all animals as such. There are other conventions that deal with fish, migratory birds, whales, but again, the focus is on species preservation, not welfare of animals individually. So the protection is at the species level. So there is a gap in the law to fill, we think. Now, the idea of an international convention on animal protection has now strong support internationally. In February 2021, the American Bar Association passed this resolution, 101C. And as you can see in the slide, the resolution urges all nations to negotiate an international convention for the protection of animals that establishes standards for the proper care and treatment of all animals to protect public health, the environment, and the animal well-being. And our initiative tries to meet that call. And how does it do it? So now let's move to the last section. What does this new treaty provide? In terms of structure, CAP is designed as a sort of umbrella treaty to advance animal interest at the international level. I say umbrella treaty because it consists of a main framework treaty, which is the convention itself, that introduces this set of this minimum standard of treatment, and then is coupled with protocols. Through protocols, groups of states can negotiate additional agreements that work sort of as sub-agreements agreements on other specific issues to advance even more the protection. And the rationale of this structure is that we need, on the one hand, as I said, the introduction of these new standards to bridge the gap at the existing regulation at the international, regional, and domestic level. But on the other hand, what we need is a space, a platform for states and stakeholders to come together and negotiate and find cooperative solutions to animal issues. Animal issues that are evolving, several of them are evolving, and so what is needed is really a space to address these global issues on an ongoing and evolving basis. So, CAP, first of all, sets out some fundamental principles. You have here, Article 1. The first one is the recognition of the interconnection between animals, humans, and the environment. In that, CAP fully embraces the One Health, so-called One Health approach principle, so this holistic, non-sectorial approach that recognizes the interconnection between animal health, animal health, human health, and environmental health. You cannot have one without the others. It recognizes that the public health and zoonotic diseases such as COVID-19 are directly related to treatment of animals. The second, is, as I said, the recognition that animals have intrinsic value, so they deserve protection for their own sake. Third, as you see, for animals under human control, recognize that there is a positive obligation for humans to ensure the well-being of the animals. And then the treaty elaborates that, as I will show. And lastly, there is the the relationship between animal welfare and zoonotic diseases and public health security. So building on those fundamental principles, CAP identifies 5 main areas of regulation, 5 broad categories of obligations for states, and you have them here on the slide. So animal welfare generally, human interaction with animals under human control, human interaction with wild animals, the emergence and spread of pathogens, and last, information collection and sharing. So I'll go through them in turn, starting with animal welfare generally. So with respect to all animals, the obligation is for states to assure that animals are not subject to cruel acts or conditions, and if they're killed, the methods that inflict the least pain and suffering are used. That states should integrate the protection of animal well-being into all relevant sectorial policies, so environment, agriculture, public health, education, etc. Then CAP has a non-regression principle, so that existing measures should not be weakened or worsened to the detriment of animal well-being, and so the direction should be of improvement rather than decrease. For animals under human control, as I said, there is a positive obligation to ensure the well-being of animals, and that includes providing suitable and sufficient food and water, shelter, opportunities for exercise, movement, and socialization, responsible care, including veterinary services, that ensures appropriate health, well-being, and sanitary conditions, prevent cruelty and unnecessary suffering, prevent abandonment. And then it's very important to regulate transport. So animals that are being transported should be provided with opportunities for rest, ventilation, food, water. There should be maximum times for transportation and confinement, and avoid overcrowding and adverse environmental conditions. The third category was human interaction with wild animals. And here the obligation is for state to establish and maintain a system of protected areas for wild animals, so where animals can live in their habitat, is to promote and prioritize known lethal management methods, and those that result in the least suffering of the wildlife, and also to monitor the effects of climate change, infrastructure on wild animals and their habitat. And then we have this public health component, which is about the emergence and spread of pathogens. To minimize pathogenetic spillover risk, we have a series of obligations. One is to create prevention system tailored to the locally relevant risks with early warning, monitoring, reporting, containment, treatment, prohibiting the administration of antibiotics to promote growth and increase health, and in general to regulate supply chains, trade, transport of animals, live animal markets, laboratories where animals are used or found, to ensure the proper containment and separation between species and appropriate health and sanitation for animals and humans. Okay, so conscious of time, I'm just going to refer to our website, conventionanimalprotection.org, for the rest of the provisions, especially the more procedural ones, and the text of the treaty itself. And I'm just going to conclude with this quote that is attributed, probably wrongly, to Winston Churchill, and say this, that there is a gap in the law when it comes to the protection of animals, and COVID-19 has shown the effects of that lacuna, that gap. COVID-19 has also created a promising political context, political momentum to act and adopt a broad treaty providing for obligations for human in their interaction with animal to secure a healthier and safer future for animals and for humans. And with that, I'll stop and